Hello, everyone. Hi, good to have you all here today. I should have gone for more of an upbeat soundtrack to the start of this session. Welcome to today's learning talk. And this is hosted by the Asana community team, and it's spotlighting today Unito. Unito, for those of you who don't know it or are not familiar, is a workflow management solution that allows organizations to build the two-way integrations between business apps. I'm Francesca, for those of you who haven't met me yet, and I'm part of the team that runs Asana's community programs. This learning talk is part of a series of events that normally are exclusively dedicated to our community members. So today it's extra special. We are welcoming some of the attendees in the audience are Unito experts, and we're really excited to have you all here. Thanks for joining. As a reminder, as always, these events, these learning talks are recorded. We will send a recording in a follow-up email to share. And throughout the event, feel free to use the Q&A function to drop your questions. We're going to have Fanny from the Unito team keeping an eye out on any Unito-related questions that can be answered while Jeremie, our presenter for today, will be going through the learning talk. And we also have Neil from our PMM partnerships team helping out with questions. And here's the agenda. So hi, everyone. We're meeting Jeremie in a second, who will be leading the learning talk. He will open with an overview about the importance of Unito and deep integrations with Asana, then move into demoing one of the possible use cases involving the Jira integration. And we will close with a Q&A and a quick PSA about our community program for those of you who aren't in it yet. So without further ado, I'm asking Jeremie to join me on this virtual stage and introduce himself. Hi, Jeremie.
Hey, Francesca, thanks so much. So like Francesca mentioned, my name is Jeremie. I'm on the Unito team. I'm a product marketer at our organization. And I mean, like you, I'm an Asana champion ambassador. I've actually worked with Asana across 3 different organizations. Sonder, a hospitality tech organization that were huge Asana advocates and champions. Then when I started my own business, I brought Asana in and helped us on the project management side there. And in addition to being an Asana partner at Unito, we also use Asana internally for our day-to-day. So it's always super exciting to be able to, share with the community when it's a tool that you're so passionate and you work a lot with. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. And I think if I recognize a few names, I think you're all pretty familiar with Asana, but just in case you don't know about Asana, it's a tool that helps teams orchestrate their work from small projects to long-term strategic initiatives. We're helping teams achieving their best work in 190 countries across the world. And the product is currently available in 13 languages. And through Asana partners, some of which you see on screen, Asana integrates with over 200 technology partners, among which Unito. And these include essential enterprise tools that enable organizations to bring all of their workflows, all of their data into a single platform for managing their work. And with that, over to you, Jeremie. Take it away, and feel free to take over the screen share.
Will do. Thank you, Francesca. Let's see, can you see my my screen wall still? Francesca? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Awesome. So taking it over, and I'll start off by just getting kind of straight to the point. What is Unito other than a workflow management platform? So we really offer deep two-way integrations, real-time integrations with Asana to other project management tools, software development solutions, task-based help desks, and CRM tools. And we really try to go beyond kind of the traditional automation solutions that are out there. I'm sure many of you guys, for example, have used Zapier before, but there's a few others in that space, and they're fantastic tools for automation to push data in, pull data out. But we at Unito kind of look at the problem a little bit differently, and we are really focused on that collaboration element. And so that's what we focus on. And that's what you can see in that GIF over here, is that our two-way syncing means that you have the ability to collaborate across different tools without ever having to leave Asana. We offer really deep filtering and deep field configuration, so that things like comments, custom fields, and even subtasks hierarchies can sync from Asana to other tools. And all of this is done in real time so that you're never really left wondering, is this still up to date, or am I looking at a vision of the past here in Asana? And so we really believe in our partnership with Asana for that reason, because it's such a hub for so many people, and we want to enhance it and help it grow in the same way that a lot of Asana's native partners and integrations that it already offers can do. So a little bit of context here in terms of, where does this kind of come from, right? So SaaS is booming. You personally are using more and more tools that are specialized to the work that you're doing. But across your organization, you're also seeing more and more tools arise. You've got sales working in one set of tools, marketing in a different. Some of it is going to be in Asana, but some of it is going to be elsewhere. And even across organizations, everyone has kind of their own digital tool stack, which means that you're trying to kind of get an overview of the work that a team is doing or is trying to do. It's becoming increasingly challenging. And as a result, it's easy to get misaligned. It's easy to lose visibility into the work that you're trying to report on or trying to keep track of. And what ends up happening is you end up spending so much time consolidating information and reporting on it instead of actually collaborating and being proactive with that information and using it to make decisions across your business. And that's something I remember when I had started my own company. Our CTO was using GitHub for all of his day-to-day. And when I tried to bring in Asana, it's one of the first things I noticed is that if I wanted to be able to do my project tracking and general organization out of Asana, something had to give in terms of where people were going to work. And back then, what ended up happening was he had to copy and paste that information from GitHub into Asana, and I had to remind him and keep him up to date to have him tell me, hey, what's up to date, what's not. But if I'd had that's the problem that Unito can solve, is if I had a solution like Unito, I would have really been able to bridge that gap between Asana and GitHub and have everything that I need to be able to track my projects, to get feedback on, and to collaborate with him directly out of Asana without ever having to leave the tool. So that's really the vision here is to bridge that collaboration gap between these different tools with Unito. So how does that work in a little bit more context, or taking a look at some of the different use cases that we cover? I've mentioned a few. The first one, and I would say probably the biggest one, especially for the audience today, is that project management reporting use case. What we see all the time is that you're trying to provide a consolidated view of the work and the projects that your team is working on out of Asana, but that information doesn't necessarily live exclusively in Asana, or it can even live across multiple projects, across multiple tools. And so at first, project management reporting with Unito, what you'd be able to do is sync information from Jira, from other Asana projects, from GitHub, into one main Asana project to give you that consolidated overview, and then to be able to build timeline and Gantt views, and even potentially sync that into another tool like Google Sheets to enrich and go even further with the reporting. So that's the first one, is that project management, tracking, and reporting. The second one that we see all the time is support ticket escalations. A lot of times engineering teams, product teams will be working out of Asana, but customer success teams and support teams might be working out of a tool like Zendesk, Jira Service Desk, or even Intercom. And in those cases, there's a lot of opportunities for those frontline teams to escalate tickets, requests from customers to the hands of engineering and product teams for them to be able to prioritize and work on. And then the last use case is that sales and CRM use case. And here, really what we tend to see is that we have these sales teams that are working day-to-day in Salesforce and HubSpot, but will want to either escalate their own tasks or provide visibility on upcoming work to other teams that might be working in Asana. Finance teams, procurement teams, customer success teams for big onboarding projects, and be able to sync that crucial information out of a CRM into Asana and then back once the task has been done on the Asana side. So Unito really lets you kind of wire up these different use cases, different tool stacks, and provide that centralized view inside of Asana that you need for your day-to-day project management. And if we want to zoom in here a little bit more closely into how does it work with syncing Jira specifically? Well, in this case, new issues and sprints are managed in Jira where the developers might be working, but we have our product teams working in Asana and sharing and collaborating with stakeholders out of Asana, because that's the tool that the organization uses as a whole. So as a result, what we want to really be able to do is, rather than duplicate the information between these tools and have someone painstakingly manually copy the information back and forth, we want Unito to automatically take new issues created in Jira or take new issues created in Asana and sync them across the two, so that the two teams are essentially working in sync across these two different tools without ever having to leave the environment that they're most comfortable with, and that makes the most sense for the kinds of work that they're doing. So how does this work? I'll show you in the demo a little overview of how this actually works in practice. So let me pull that up here. In the meantime, are there any questions in chat, Francesca, or
not so far?
None so far? Perfect. I'm sure there will be some more when I jump into the demo. So let me full screen this to make sure that you can see this properly. Just gonna up the quality here. There you go. So let me just explain a little bit kind of how this works and what you're seeing in front of you. Basically, I've split my screen here between Unito on the right-hand side, Jira, and Asana. So I've got this Unito workflow that you can see on the right-hand side where I've connected two different Jira projects up to one of my Asana projects. And then on the bottom left-hand side, I've got this Wizard of Oz project that I'm going to be creating issues and updating on the Jira side. So that's this project right here. And then at the upper left-hand side, what I've got is my Asana project, my project that I call Building Oz Project Management, that my team is using to report on this Building Oz project, as simple as it sounds. So I'm just going to scrub forward here a little bit and show you how this is going to work. Essentially, what I'm going to show in a little bit is how a task that's created in Asana is going to sync into Jira, get updated into Jira, and then be able to sync back into Asana all in real time. And so with this specific workflow, like we talked about, usually what we're seeing is we want the engineering team that's working in Jira to be able to provide that seamless level of updates from Jira back into Asana, where my PM team is working. So let me show you again how this works. I'm going to create a new task in Asana that I'm going to call my Flying Monkey V2 for this Building Oz project management. And I'm going to add a little bit more detail here. That's all going to be synced over into Jira seamlessly. So once I create that task in Asana, I can add a description. I can say, I want the bigger wings this time for this flying monkey. I can add the status of this task. I can also add things like comments, due dates, etc. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as is because I want my engineering team to actually pick this up once I create it. And from there, I want that engineering team to fill in more of the details so that I can kind of see that in my high level planning. You'll also notice that as I'm creating that task in Asana, I'm adding this little wicked tag. And that wicked tag in Asana is going to act as my trigger. So only the issue or the tasks in this Asana project with the wicked tag are going to be the ones to sync from this project into Jira. If I had the Wizard of Oz tag, for example, it wouldn't sync, only if you have the wicked tag. And we'll talk a little bit about how these different filters or these different triggers can work when we look into the behind the scenes. But for now, we're just going to see it sync through. I'm going to just scrub forward here a little bit more to see that that item sync. And in fact, if you see on the bottom left-hand side, I've got this new Flying Monkey V2 task that's been created in Jira. And so with this issue, what I've done now that I've created it in both sides is that they're going to be kept in sync throughout the lifetime of this issue and task. So anything that I do on the Jira side is going to be reflected back into Asana at this stage. I get a little link even in Jira that is a reference point for my team to be able to use. This is quite helpful because you'll have the same thing on the Asana side if you ever need to go and see a little bit more in depth the work that's being done. I can also add a comment here, like I'm going to get started on this. I can change a status, update the epic or the priority that this is on. Here, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm even going to drag this from out of my backlog in Jira into my sprint above. And when I do that, that change in sections, that change from the backlog to the sprint is also going to be reflected in Asana. And I'm going to change the task sections in Asana from in the planning section, as you can see above, to the in current sprint section that you can see right below there. So fast forward this once more, and I can see that the inactive sprints, I can see that that information is now synced across. And so the comment that I added on the Jira side has been updated. The task status has been updated. That's obviously super important because now I'm up to date and I know in Asana without ever having to leave that space that work has started on this. I can see that comment come through and basically I can get that full picture view that I need in Asana without ever having to leave the tool and all automatically without having to associate issues or remember to duplicate or any of this stuff. And we'll take a look at it when we take a look at the rules in a minute, but this is just basically available out of the box. You don't have to spend hours kind of setting up your rules to try to get this right. Like this is the default behavior. So it's really, really super easy to get this working in this way. One other thing that I'll quickly note here as well is that it's not just, once in one way, once the other way. Any change that I make on either side at this stage is still going to be updated. So if I wanted to add a new comment in Asana, or if I wanted to change the status again in Jira, that's going to keep syncing two ways so that I have the ability to have that collaboration really happen between these two teams, again, without ever having to leave the tool that I'm working out of or change, revert to email or to Slack or anything like that. So I'll fast forward here and go to take a look at what's kind of going on behind the scenes here, give you a sense of how easy it is to set up Unito. So I'm clicking over and hovering over a node here and these nodes are what we call our flows. And those flows really are going to dictate what the behavior between an Asana project and the other tool that I'm connecting is going to be. In this case, this other Jira project. It's a really simple 4-step process. The first is selecting the projects that I want to sync. That's easy enough. Once I've selected those different projects, I've got a choice here. and I can decide essentially whether tasks created should be, or tasks should be able to be created both ways. I can create tasks in Asana, have them sync into Jira, or I can create tasks in Jira, have them sync into Asana. So I can choose that, and that's what I've chosen here with the two-way flow creation. Or I can choose to have them just push out one way. Only tasks created in Asana will appear in Jira, but anything that I add in Jira won't come back into Asana. And the reason for that is so that you can really kind of granularly decide what information should come and go, and not overwhelm either team with the amount of information that we have between the two tools. Once I've selected the direction that tasks are going to be created, I'm going to select my rules. My rule here is if tasks in Asana are in this Building Oz project, the task status is open and the tag is wicked, then I'm going to be creating a matching issue in Jira and keeping them in sync, and setting that issue to be even a story. That's another point here. But the idea here is really, I've got these different triggers that I can use to determine how information should sync. I can stack these triggers. So I can say if the tag is wicked and the task is in progress and it's assigned to Jeremie, only then it will sync. And I can use a whole range of fields in order to determine whether an item should sync or not. Anything from custom fields, assignees, section that it's part of, tags you've seen. So I've got a lot of configuration and customizability here available just at my fingertips. And again, it's so that you can really just choose what information should sync from Asana and to Asana. And so as I skip forward here, you're going to see as well the different options available, but you can do the same thing on the Jira side and say only certain kinds of tasks or certain tasks that have certain components should sync from Jira into Asana. And so that's really the filter, and that's what is going to sync. And then the last step is going to be that field mapping. And the field mapping is if the rules above are which tasks should sync, the field mapping is what information on these tasks should sync. So by default, things like title, start dates, even labels and tags are going to be mapped. But there's tons of information that might be relevant on a specific Asana project to sync. In the case of Jira, for example, I have these issue types, whether it's a story, whether it's an epic, whether it's a bug, and I want that to map to my task types. So that's what I've configured here. I even have the ability, I don't show this here, but I have the ability to say specifically these values should map. So this value in Asana is equal to this value in Jira. And then from there, it's really about choosing what information is relevant for those teams and mixing and matching to find the right solution. That's all it takes. Once I've selected what I want to sync, I can and finished editing my settings. I always have the option to either only apply changes moving forward, so only for the new tasks, or go back retroactively and sync the two projects. So that's always something that you'll have kind of available. You can start, but you can go back and you can go forward, no problem. And that's pretty much it. That's how you can set up an Asana Jira connection with Unito. I'm going to kind of full screen from this here because it ends the portion of the demo, but I'm using Jira as an example here. I mentioned GitHub in my story a little bit earlier with my CTO, but there's a whole host of tools that have these tasks that you might want to sync with Asana, and most of them can be synced with Unito as well. So that's really how that works.
Jeremie, we have a question from Libby.
Yeah.
The question is, oh, Fanny took it. Okay. But yeah, she was wondering about the assignee field and how that part would work. So if there can be an inconsistency between assignees on Asana and Jira, or if it would be reflected across the two.
Yeah, so you need, you can have assignees sync. It's just another value that you have to map in a way. It's one-to-one. So if I'm Jeremie in Asana, I'll need to be Jeremie in Jira as well. I can't map 2-to-1. So I can't map Jeremie and Francesca to Jeremie in Asana. It's all one-to-one for now. But if you don't have anyone, that's okay also. We can also always sync those assignee fields to a text field, for example, if you don't have one-to-one assignee mapping. So there's a few different options that you'll have in order to make sure that that information flows. And in this example, that assignee wasn't mapped in this case. And so when it's not mapped, it just doesn't flow through.
Perfect. And Peter is asking, how does Unito expand on the native Jira Asana integration?
That's a really good question. So the native Jira integration is really super useful, especially to merge or to indicate like a specific bug or a specific issue, where we kind of, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, where we really enhance Asana's integration is that automation element is a big one. So with the native integration, you really have to go one-to-one and associate X issue to Y issue in Jira, or remember to create each of those issues. With Unito, all you need to do is add that tag and automatically all that information comes across. But I also have that really deep ability to manipulate multiple fields 2 ways with the Unito integration. And so I can have the possibility of changing the task's progress, the assignee adding a comment automatically from Asana or automatically from Jira without ever having to leave that tool, which you can't really do with the native integration with Asana so far. So that's those are the big ones that we see there with the Unito integration.
Cool. And I'm just going to leave a bit more time in case the folks here have more questions that bubble up. But in the meantime, Jeremie, can you extend this workflow to add a 3rd app? Would that be too many apps at once?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of apps out there. And so I think what you saw in that workflow is I had Asana connected to 2 different Jira projects. I can connect to 2 different Jira projects, but I can also connect to another tool in GitHub. All of that can be part of the same workflow. And something that's created in Jira could flow to Asana and then could flow even to a GitHub project or to a Google Sheets row or to any other tool. So there's no limitation there. Usually the way that we think about our workflows, they're a category of work. So it can be a project that people are launching. It could be a department that people are in, but I can include any number of tools in it without having to leave that single workflow.
Perfect. And yeah, if you have any more questions from the audience, we'll keep an eye out. But moving on to a different tool, what about Salesforce? What would be syncing with Asana if we were to think about that?
Yeah,
use?
That's a super good one. And Salesforce is so widely spread. So with Salesforce, for now, Unito only connects and syncs tasks in Salesforce, just a small part of it. And so that's really useful if you have salespeople creating tasks for themselves or creating tasks for other people in their organizations in Salesforce, because it means that if they're asking for help from legal or procurement or whatever that is, well, that information is going to be synced to Asana where the legal team might be working, and they'll be able to see that they have that work. What's coming up with our Salesforce integration, there's 2 components. The first is the ability to sync contacts. And so that would mean really being able to sync all of that really rich information that's available in a CRM into an Asana task and get a sense of the demographic information, the product information, all of that really vital information that you get from syncing in contact in Salesforce into Asana. And then eventually what we'll also see is the ability to sync deals from Salesforce into Asana. And again, that's to really help on that collaboration side and be able to say, well, our big important customer deals, I want to be able to sync into a specific Asana project so that I keep an eye on them there. And so that I can ask for help from my legal team or from my customer success team when I need it.
Cool. And yeah, if you have any follow-up question on that, feel free to raise your hand or signal through either chat or the Q&A. So we were talking earlier on, and you mentioned that one question that you often get is about data and what kind of data Unito has access to, syncs out of Asana.
Yeah, that's a super important one too, because at Unito we take obviously the information that you have and the data that you have super seriously. And so one of the things that we've done to really minimize kind of any risks that you might have with Unito is that we don't actually store any of the data any of the task of the item data that you have in Asana. Everything that Unito takes out of Asana is transient. So it's moved seamlessly through Unito from Asana to Jira, from Jira back into Asana. So like what you saw, but we wouldn't store any of that data internally at Unito because we know that it's often sensitive and critical information. And we want to make sure that, that you guys can feel safe using Unito for that.
Cool. And one last from me, there's always a piece around how would this work across different Asana projects or even different organizations. As soon as you start adding additional layers of complexity to how you use Asana, the question on what would sync follows. Do you have any insight there?
Yeah, one of the, especially for Asana certified pros and Asana champions, one of the things that we see come up quite a bit actually is, they have their own Asana organization, and then they have their clients' Asana organization or their customers or vendors' Asana organizations. And so something that we see all the time, and it could be Asana, but it could be Jira, it could be another tool, is the ability to sync across organizations, which is something that you can absolutely do with Unito. And so in that case, what's great is Unito kind of lets you work in the organization that is most relevant for you. And it also provides a layer of safety and a layer a layer of security to make sure that only the important or only the relevant information is shared between those two organizations. And we can do the same thing across Asana projects. So even we see use cases where people are almost to augment, let's say, Asana's native rules, which are already super powerful, but to go even a step further, Unito can be used to sync automatically a task from Asana project into a different Asana project so that you can automatically kind of have that task creation happen and only send the right information using that field mapping between those two projects.
Cool. And there were a couple of questions on HubSpot and Asana, but I think Fanny answered them.
Yeah, I see that.
From Marquis and DB too.
Yeah, and I can even say that the HubSpot deals integration is actually something that's coming up. Really soon on our roadmap, I think in the next couple of months. And so that's going to give you a really great ability to take HubSpot deals and automatically sync them into Asana and provide, again, those stakeholders with that visibility and the ability to kind of know what's coming down your pipeline in terms of HubSpot and what big customers you're working on and who's going to need extra onboarding care and things like that. So that's a super exciting one that we're looking and we're excited to kind of develop our partnership with as well.
Great. And as we approach the end of the time that we have together, oh my God, that sounds dramatic, but that way. If I were teaching myself how to use Unito, what are the resources out there? Is there resources or groups or support that I can reach out to if I get stuck?
Yeah, so I mean, Unito offers live support and email support to all of our customers. That's obviously a great one. We have a pretty extensive guide that you can find on our website with a lot of resources. We're also on YouTube more and more, where you can find a bunch of demos and videos like the one that I shared today that really kind of take you step by step through how to set up and how to work with Unito. But yeah, those are all really great resources to get started. And I mean, I know Reed and myself also lurk the Asana Champions Slack forum, because I mean, we've been using Asana for such a long time too. So, I mean, if ever, you can feel free to let us know and reach out to us there as well. Don't be shy. Yeah.
Thanks, Reed. Yeah, and Reed has been very active in the forum too. For those of you who are also there, you may have seen him or recognize the name. All right, thank you so much. I think most of the folks over here, now that I scroll through the names, are already in the community. But if you want to skip to the next slide, in the off chance there's one person that isn't part of the community, yeah, just a quick plug to stay in touch. I just want to extend an invitation to join in. As you've seen, we regularly host learning opportunities like the one you attended today. And by joining the community, you really get that unlocking that Asana Insider status, getting updates on upcoming launches, staying connected with us, the team, which is a pretty good perk already. But more than that, you get connected to the global community of people, like the nice folks that are here today with us, learning about Asana from each other. So yeah, if this is something that can be helpful for you, I look forward to seeing you there. And with that, we are at time. Thank you, Jeremie, for walking us through the capabilities of Unito today. Thank you, Fanny, for answering all the questions, and for all of you to being here and taking the time. Thank you so much, and see you at the next event.
Thank you again. And thanks to the Asana team for setting this up. This was a lot of fun.
Of course. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.